Hey, we're back with another Lick of the Week installment. This is for July 24th. And I'm going to continue with that same C scale pathway that we discussed in the first C section lick last week. And remember, I started you with a basic pathway for a scale. And again, there's more than one pathway for these melodic scales, but I just gave you the most common. And then we worked a couple of simple licks based on the scale notes. Let's continue with that idea and get a little more in depth with it. I'm going to tag another note onto one of the previous licks. I think the first lick we did was based on starting with this F note out of the C scale. I'm going to backtrack a little bit, and I'm going to pick up the high 5th string, which is a G, and I'm going to play basically the same lick with a twist. I'm going to start on the 5th string. And this is going to be a backwards roll pattern, still holding the F and the E note, just like we did from the first lick we studied in last week's series. 5, 1, 2, 5, 1, 2. So it's a backwards roll. 5, 1, 2, 5, 1, 2, 1, 5. Then it changes direction. Resolve it to C if you like, so that your ear can hear where this is going. So there again, we've got the same basic fingering position, because this is based on what? A C scale, right? Like most melodic licks in C, they're based on C major. So we're just going to start with the highest note. Remember last week I also said that I'm not going to go any higher for a while than the 5th string. So there's your high register note out of the scale. 5, 1, 2, 5, 1, 2, open 1, open 5. Alright. Now, so you have the first lick. Now you can add a higher register. And again, remember we talked about single, 2-note, and 4-note scales. This is definitely a slice of a 4-note descending C major scale. But again, it's starting with a mode. We're not starting with a C note. We're starting with a G note. But the G note is one of the notes out of the scale. Alright, now, this is great territory right here. The reason I'm not going any higher than the 5th fret open for these C licks for a while anyway is because there are so many great C licks waiting to be found right across this scale pathway that there's no need to go anywhere for a while, especially if you're not familiar with C melodic licks. So this is all new territory to some of you folks. Alright, let's move over to the 3rd string and the 2nd string at the 5th fret. We'll stay in this same general area. And again, these are scale notes. Here's an E note on the 2nd string at 5, and here's the C note, 3rd string at 5. All right, hold these two notes. I'm going to use my ring in my middle, and we're going to stay in that 4-note variety of scales, overlapping series of 4 notes. But I'm going to slice it and dice it, I call it, into smaller pieces so I can make licks. Here's a really cool and real easy lick based on these two scale notes. 1st string is open. The roll pattern is 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, open. And then resolve it, if you like, to C. 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, C. And the notes would be, for this pattern, would be E, D, C, E, D, C, B, D, resolve. So there again, this is just a small section of an otherwise really long 4 notes variety of a C major scale. And again, it's a mode. We're starting on a B note. So we're starting out of order, but that's how licks work, especially in melodic style, and single string too for that matter. You don't always have to play the scale verbatim. You break it up into fragments or chunks, whatever you want to call it, slice it and dice it, whatever you want to say about it, and break it into pieces that can be usable. So of course you would start by practicing the 4-note C melodic scale in that area to get used to that, but you can also memorize just these licks that we're going over, but you'll also be learning something about the mechanics of playing 4-note scales on the banjo in melodic style, which is kind of nice. So even if you think, well, I'm not really going to get that deeply into melodic scales to learn a C major scale in 4-note variety. Well, you're actually doing that right now anyway when you play this lick. You're just not playing the entire scale as practice, but you are playing bits and pieces of it, so you're learning that as you go anyway. So why not practice it? If you want to get serious about 4-note variety scales, then you can practice the whole C major scale in this area if you like. So anyway, I'll shut up. Back to the lick. Alright, now what if we add that chromatic idea? Remember some of the other licks that we talked about in the one chord, or the same chord as the key you're in. When you play 4-chord licks like C major is to G, we can also add a chromatic note, a note that doesn't belong in C major, and get some really cool effects. So let's take the same exact position, the C and the E note, and change the E to E flat. So I'm going to move from the 5th fret to the 4th fret of the 3rd string, and that will change this E to E flat, which happens to be also a note you would find in C minor. There's another cool intersection point. Remember how I talked about the trifecta of scales and things where you get more than one use? You can also switch from C major to C minor by flatting the 3rd. The 3rd note in the chord is an E. C, E, G makes a C chord. So by changing that E to an E flat, you also have now a C minor chord, which means if you play your cards right and your rolls correctly, you can also come up with some pretty cool C minor licks. And C minor can also function as C blues. So if you want to play some C blues ideas and throw a little melodic twist in there, you can morph this scale that we just played, or partial scale, and you can add a little bluesy twist by actually throwing in a little C minor scale ideas in there. So I just changed one note. I changed E, 2, 1, 3. There's the change. 2, 1, 3, 2, 1. Resolve it to C. So there again, we're kind of cheating a little bit if you want to think of it that way, but we're actually modifying this fragment of a C major scale in 4-note form, and we're changing one note to give us a little blues effect. And like I said, you can get more than one use for this. If you wanted to eliminate the E note altogether on the 5th fret and just start with this C minor idea, E flat, C, and roll that, you can also use that as a C minor idea for a roll or for improvisation. So you get a lot more uses from it. So the first lick that we played was modified with this high G note. And then we moved to the 5th fret on the middle 2 strings and played a 4-note idea. Now we've modified that by adding that chromatic note, the note that doesn't belong, and we've come up with some pretty cool C blues and also a C minor idea. Remember, it's all in how you resolve a lick. So if you're pedaling around with these ideas and you want to think, well, I'm going to use this as a C minor idea, you can't resolve it to C. You have to resolve it to C minor. So it's all in the resolution of the idea. So your ear is looking for a conclusion to all that. It's like, where's this going? So you tell the listener's ear what idea this is, even though it crosses over 2 or 3 different ideas. C major, C blues, C minor. It's all how you resolve it. So take these ideas and we'll continue with this little portion of the fingerboard in the next installment. Appreciate it. Hope you enjoy it.